G'day everyone again, and thank you for coming back to the channel on this chilly, wintry day. So we've done a lot about Ansible iOS command. We touched on iOS config with the backup option. Today we're actually going to make our first config change using, once again, iOS config. So happy times. This is part two of episode two. I don't know why I just didn't say episode three, four, and five. I think it's just because when I was making it, I figured there's a little bit more we should explore on this particular one to get yourself some exposure to the various modules. Again, everything is up in Git. Please go over there, find the respective files, and move them to your relevant path. That is up to you. So, what do we want to achieve today? And someone may note, I actually finally paid for this software. Well, Charles Sturt Uni did. So thank you guys. So the goal today, understand how we pull a variable from the host var file, which I hope you remember a bit about the host var file. And we're going to take this variable and we're going to push it to the node as part of the iOS config argument. The example we're going to use here and now, we're going to set the host name of the router, so in the running config, to a specific variable. Now, we could have used an Ansible magic variable such as inventory host name. That would have set it to the same thing, but I figured you're more than likely going to start using the host var variables. So let's really get into that vibe and doing of things, the mos maiorum. So once again, looking at, as now we've paid for this, well, Charles Sturt has, we can move my head. This is very much an example of straight from the Ansible modules page of what we're going to do. Top level configuration, we're going to use iOS config over here. And the lines, remember, we can employ a list. We're going to set the host name. So if you're from a Cisco background, there's an actual, if you're not from a Cisco background, we can actually change the host name via a command called, funnily enough, hostname space, then a string of text. Much like what we see here. Hostname, then a string of text. It's just we're declaring a variable. And we can, that way it can be played against multiple devices. Because if we were to put a hostname string, and every router would then be named the same thing. I'm surprised I didn't teach that, because I know I did that a year or two ago when I was first learning myself. So let's actually just take a look at where we're going to change this. So we're looking at the host vars at the moment. I've updated these in the inventory. Please feel free to go over and have a look. What you're seeing in front of you shouldn't catch you by surprise. We've added one line here, and we've given this nickname of, well, we've given this variable a name of nickname and a value here in what CPO1 of what CPO1, funnily enough. Down here in what CPO2 inventory file or host var file, again, the variable is called nickname and the value of that is what CPO2. We could have named this anything we wanted, as long as it's not an Ansible magic or reserved variable name. For me, this is one I actually have in my various plays. And I did actually refer to it as NIC name, so nickname, but I realized, because I confused someone recently and they were thinking that's the name of the nick, whereas I was saying a nickname is a name of the device, an alias, which I didn't want to use that word either. So just, hey, it's a nickname. So let's really get into it, and I'll just walk through a bit of the goal. I can always put my head out of the play. So we're going to write a single task play against the group CPEs. A sub-element of this is iOS config, and a sub-element of iOS config is lines. Let me recap on that. we're using iOS config, and then we can supply multiple lines as a list. We're only going to have one, as I said. And we're going to call after hostname a variable, and that's going to be iterated per device. So every device that would be part of our play will get a host name pulled from its host var file. It's not going to get one that's going to be applied to everything because that would be kind of useless. This is specific to that node and that host file for that node. So let's just go ahead and make it. I can bugger off. How do I bugger off? I can go somewhere like that for now. Oh, hope everyone's been doing some great learning. So, where are we? We're going to go to Mr. or Mrs. Sublime. So we can write our file. Now, once again, here's something I did earlier. All we're going to do is write up this file, this play. And if you're following the play, that's the name of the play. I've already saved it. However, we're going to write it out longhand. So once again, declare this as a YAML file. We're going to say, we're going to give it a name. It's Season 5, Episode 2, Part 2 of 3, Ansible to change host name. Again, gather facts. No, we do not want to waste time and execute Python scripts locally for a remote device. It's pointless for this specific application. Hosts. Well, I've already done the proofing, but we will run this against CPEs. The connection is indeed network CLI, which we can omit because we've done it other places. Now onto our tasks, and as we said, this is a single. Can we expand this? Yes. God, sometimes I do silly things. We are going to have a single task in this play, and always got to watch your indentation if you wanted to say it properly. So I can see it across the screen. Task 1, change host name using iOS config lines. And just so I can see it, dance across the screen. The module we are using is called iOS config. And iOS config has a concept of lines. We are using a list. There is only one item, one line that we're going to do, so it's pretty simple. And if you were typing this at conft in your Cisco command line, where you'd move to conft, then you would issue hostname space string of text, which would be, for our case, what CPO1, what CPO2, etc., etc. Well, there is no more, etc., etc. We only have 2 routers. I did find a third. It's behind that board right there. I will get that crack-a-lacking soon. So this is where it gets a little bit fun. Hostname, then we call the variable, which we called it nickname. Now, because this is actually stored in the host var, I don't have to declare a path to where the variables are, such as if I supplied a file, I would need to declare, okay, where do I pull the variables from? We are calling this straight from the host var file. Just think it would have looked at a group var or a host var to pull such information from. This nickname is indeed in host var. So you know what? That's actually enough right there to save. Let's actually just check indentation. It's always good and handy. Something's happened to my mousey. Oh, there we go. Indentation looks good. If some of you have been following along and occasionally you notice your indentation is wrong, you'll have some fun. It will say there's a problem on line 7, blah, blah, blah. It's easy to fix. Sometimes you will miss out on little quote markers, such as if you did this, for example, it changes everything else, and you kind of work it out pretty quick. Let's go ahead and save. Now, as I said, I've already run this against one of the hosts. And just to, you know what I should have done? I think I did talk about it. But in my host vars, I'm sure I spoke about it. I did. Once again, nickname. I even went and did it to the others. Nickname through to switch 1 or swat 01. So they've all been updated with the respective nicknames. So it's time to go over and run this. Here we go. Now this time we should see it. No change on what CPO1 because that's where I've actually already gone and done this. What CPO2 I haven't changed. It should actually be a change. Still got some host name, top of my head, R1841. Okay, let's go. Yes, I'm actually connected to the network this time. Cool, okay. CPO1, it should make a change. Excellent, it didn't. Notice over here, what's CPO2? It's actually had to make a change, and we see confirmation of that in our receipt. So why don't we go and SSH into SSH. Now I know the IP address, it's in your inventory file. It's sysadmin-jb, that's the username we've been using this whole series, at 100.61.0.102. And just to confirm, 102 should indeed be this fella. Yes, it is. Let's go back to our trusty command line. We'll SSH in. Once we auth, we should see a host name on that box of what CPO2. That took a little bit longer. That was a little bit scary. Voila. Superb. What CPO2 is now the host name. You could extrapolate that across any config command in Cisco iOS that doesn't have a concept, such as if you're going to go into interface configuration, you're going to need to specify a parent. But where you don't need to go into something akin to hierarchy in Juniper, that's why Juniper is just such a better OS. Single command line strings, config strings, I should say, you could just change as you want, such as if you wanted to change the NTP or something like that. Add a user, for example, you could just replace what we had in the iOS config list of commands to whatever you need. So as we've seen, the nickname here, variable, correlates exactly to what we have there. I hope you're understanding that part. And it can get more complicated when we have something that's if you can think, a child or nested, with such as interfaces. All right. So what we've done is we've run the play. We've proved that this is when I did it before. We've proved that it's actually changed that router and it's given us a receipt of works. And when we SSH in, we know that we've got proof that the config has changed. So where are we? 14 minutes. That's actually a great place to end within our 15-minute limit. 15-minute limit, right? So ending Season 5, Episode 2, Part 2, we've covered a host-specific variable, a very basic one I should add. We've covered how to call a variable from the host var, and we've covered iOS config lines argument. Again, that was a list. What we will cover next is we're going to go and configure the interfaces. Now, there's multiple interfaces, so we're going to iterate. It's kind of like a loop. We're going to loop over everything within that snippet and apply to the router and then move on to the next router. So I hope to see you soon. Stay healthy, everyone, unlike myself with a bit of a sore back. And I hope to see you soon in the next one. Cheers, everyone.